I call this meeting to order. On to the roll call. I see Aubrey, Bjorn, Brandon will be late, as just mentioned. Deanna, Greg, Jess, Joey is here. I still don't see Josh.
I'm here.
I just
stopped probably on the other screen.
Yeah, you're on the second screen. My bad, Josh. All right. On to Lacey, Messina, Sean, Terry, Eunice, and Zoe are all here. And with that, let's go on to agenda approval. Can I entertain a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Bjorn. Do I see a second?
Second.
Jess seconds. All right. Motion's passed. And with that, can I entertain a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
I make a motion.
Eunice motions. Anyone seconds?
Seconded.
Seconded by Bjorn. And motion passes. All right, on to reports. I don't think I have anything to report for you guys this week, so let's move on to Brandon.
Yeah, one report is that we have just made the survey live. We went through Triple G's email, which is super helpful getting it to all the students. We also got to post it on our social medias. So for everyone who's active on social medias, please forward it along. This survey will again give us critical feedback about the student voice when it comes to all the previously funded services and activities, as well as that it shows them how much money truly went into their service and activities over the last quadrennium and how much money they really contribute each quarter. And so really kind of investing in the student buy-in, kind of like informing them about S&A some more, and then kind of really understanding what service and activities were that they used, that they were, I guess, delighted with, and then what they deem essential or not. And so really critical survey, as well as something you can tag onto that is the first 125 students that do take the survey. They have a choice of having either a $10 gift card to the Wildcat shop or a swag bag, which is pretty valued over $20 and includes a CWU t-shirt. And then if after the student fills that out, we reach out to them to get kind of like their shirt size if that's what they want to do. And then we get them mailed out after the survey closes. And the survey closes on March 12th. So it's live now all the way through March 12th. I'll put the Qualtrics link in the chat. So if there's any students in here, please feel free to do it. And then if you want to get one of those rewards, you just have to do your full name, your student ID, and then your CWU email. And with that, I yield my time to our advisors.
Brandon, I don't know if you saw the comment. Jess put a comment in there, and I think Bjorn has a question too. But I'll just read Jess. This is one note I saw in the survey. There wasn't an option for grad students, only first through 5th plus years. Not sure if you can edit to add that.
Yeah, I can probably edit to add into that, but I guess for now, for grad students, just click the 5th plus if you want to take it. But I'll kind of edit that and fix it up. But it won't change any previous responses either. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Jess.
And then before we jump into the advisor ones, Bjorn, did you have a question for Brandon?
Yeah, so it closes on the 12th. Do we get to review the data or something?
Totally. Yeah, that's it's after it closes March 12th. I know we're going to go into deliberations on each of these presentations. We'll kind of see, I'll give out all the data on that and show you all where we're at. I'll have my team and I kind of put it into like a more like salable format. So diagrams, pictures, a little bit of words here and there. But yeah, that's all mainly for the benefit of this committee when we're going into spring quarter, when we're talking about where we want these funds allocated, as well as it kind of gives us an actual like benchmark to like something that we can survey the students every year. It's like we finally created something so we can have data to finally build upon. And if we can actually create this ongoing database of student opinion and how they feel about service and activities over an entire quadrennium, that'd be really cool. And that's something that I'll have the next vice president present as well, so you kind of see that year to year growth. But yeah, after it closes and we come back from spring break, we'll have kind of a whole presentation ready.
Sweet.
Any other questions for Brandon? Awesome. I'll jump in and do my advisor report. One, for all the presenters, thank you for all being here and being on time. We'll kind of cruise through. Any of you that need help or having us present or share the screen, just let us know. I know a few of you sent presentations ahead of time. We're happy to help. I will, as you're presenting, keep track. Christian will remind you ahead of time that you have 10 minutes to present. I'll put into the chat a 2-minute warning and a 1-minute warning. I say this ahead of time because I know it's hard when you're presenting to see the chat, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up as we get close to time. My other part is just thanking the committee again for the great discussion you all have been having with our presenters and the questions. I know you all have been very intentional and thoughtful with the questions you ask here, and we have been exhausting the time on the Q&A section. And so we have been sending out questions pretty much every week to the presenters, which is great. We've been getting some good response, and I'll be sharing those when we get to the communications received. I think we reached out to every group from last week, and all of them have responded back. So I'll share those when we get to that point.
Okay, so here is our document that we've been looking at each week. And as you can see, we've got quite a few new requests today. So we're going to start off the agenda with a few that have been funded this current funding cycle, and then continue on to the new funding that we have received. Does anybody have any questions before I just lead it off with the presentations? Okay, great. Well, that's all the reports that I have.
Thank you, Lacey. And before we go to presentations, let's go to public comment. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Eunice, I see your hand up.
Like always, every week. So what I was going to say, yes, please, we have a Parade of Nations on February 25. Please let your people know, your students know about it. We need people to show up. Again, I will remind you all every week because we need the people show up that event. It's gonna be visually February 25. I forget the time, but I will send the information on the email. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. Any more comments? Seeing none, let's move on to the presentations. The first one that I see is from the Office of International Studies and Programs, and that is with, please excuse my pronunciation, Nikki Cooter. In your own time, sir. Or,
it's me. Yeah, it's Nikki Kukar. And I'm here joined. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the director of our AUAP program and also the director of our International Student and Scholar Services in the Office of International Studies and Programs. And I'm joined by our program coordinator, Chrissy Jakes, and our fiscal specialist, Patrick Smith. I think I saw him somewhere. So, and is it easier, Joey, if I share my screen or if you...
If it works for you, then usually, so you don't have to keep telling me next slide, but either way works for me.
Okay, then I will open it up and whoops. Sorry about that. Let's see. All right, can everyone see it? Okay, great. All right, so let's see. Just as an overview for those of you who aren't familiar with our office, we are made up of several different branches, the first being the AUAP program. Then we have the ISSS division, which is International Student and Scholar Services. Then we have Study Abroad and Exchange. And then we also have our UESL program, which is over there. And today I'm mostly going to focus on our International Student and Scholar Services, and those are our matriculated international students. And that's what the bulk of the funding that we've had in the past from the S&A funds goes to support. So just a quick overview. Adiz Kaikolu was our executive director. He's now been promoted to dean, and we've merged with another division. But then under our ISSS division, we have an assistant director, we have an international partnership manager, program coordinator, international student advisor, and then we have an international student advisor on the west side. And we also have an international student advisor or recruiter, I'm sorry, a recruiter on the west side. And we have a CVIS coordinator. And then this is where this program assistant position, that is what we have used our S&A fees to fund primarily. Again, for those of you who don't know much about our ISSS department, we serve as immigration advising and support for international students. So we help students get their visas and help them with any sort of immigration issues. We provide academic advising for international students and also American students who seek education abroad opportunities. We provide all of their, or we don't provide, sorry, but we support the international insurance process, making sure that all of our students have adequate insurance, and that's a very big part of our office. We also manage international partnerships, so we have a lot of institutions abroad that we network with. Our students study abroad at their institutions and vice versa. And then we also provide co-curricular activities for international and domestic students. Overview of our rationale for why we are seeking funding. Our office is the only office on campus to offer programming that is specifically designed to connect international and domestic students and to encourage cross-cultural communication and intercultural competencies. So while there are a lot of programs provided at Central, our office is one that really looks for ways to connect our international students and domestic students through in the classroom opportunities and out of classroom. We are a self-support unit, and we are responsible for international recruiting. So a bulk of our budget goes to, well, pre-pandemic, we spent a lot of resources going abroad and recruiting international students. So that's a big part of where our budget goes. In order to increase retention and meet our strategic goals, students need more support in programming. And we found that there was a lack of support for international students about 4, 5, 6 years ago, and found that a lot of our international students couldn't find ways to connect with domestic students and felt a little isolated, especially if they weren't living on campus. So that's why we initially asked for S&A funding. So our current budget for the last 4 years, we received $10,000 a year for the, and that was our first time that we got this allocation. And we were able to use that funding for program assistance. And these program assistants are all students, usually international students, but also a few domestic students. They assist with international new student orientation, which is a vital part of welcoming international students to campus, making sure that they get connected, making sure that they have resources and know who to go to. So that's a big part of their job. They led the orientation groups. They assist with programming and other activities during the year, and they act as role models and mentors for international and domestic students. Who do we serve? Currently, we have 307 international students from 66 countries. And this is up, as you can see here, from 48 countries just 3 years ago. Our enrollment did take a dip here with the current situation. I believe last year we were above 400 international students, but we're still staying steady. We also serve domestic students who are looking to study abroad or who want to engage with international students. We help CW faculty. We network a lot with the community, both Ellensburg and Central, and we also support visiting scholars. In deciding what programs to offer, we really look at what our students bring to the campus and ways that the international student body can engage with the community. We really look at ways that they diversify the residence halls and try to support any programming that we can in the residence halls. As I mentioned, in the classroom, we try to support critical thinking skills and support professors and in ways to get international students and domestic students discussing issues, develop cultural sensitivity and skills, and we help prepare students for a global work environment. So even students who can't study abroad still need experience working with international students or in a multicultural situation. So we really do try to choose programs that maximize engagement. With the funds, as I mentioned, this is what we've done in the past. We've sponsored activities that promote cross-cultural interaction. We have intentional programming for international students to learn about the US and other cultures. We provide leadership opportunities and also provide work experience for international students, which is really hard for international students because they have to find a job on campus. So by supporting these 4 program assistants, we're allowing students to get work experience. This is just a brief sample of some programming that we did in fall quarter. All of these activities are open to any student. So you can see that a lot of the numbers are quite high. We were experiencing a big uptick in our programming pre-pandemic. But even during the pandemic, we've had a lot of online activities, especially our International Cafe, which has really been a great way to engage international and domestic students. Also, with this support, we've been able to collaborate with other departments on campus. CLCE, we host 2 to 3 international cafes a quarter. And like I mentioned, we're still able to do this during the pandemic. And we really work, even though we sponsor it with CLCE, we work with other organizations all over campus, finding new hosts and new ways to get different organizations or groups or even classes on campus involved with our international student community. We've partnered with the DEC, Housing and New Student Programs, the Department of World Languages, and again, the library and the Ellensburg Library through our cultural conversations. How do our programs support the university goals? All of these goals, we really work to make sure that our programming supports what the institution believes in, especially providing cultural sensitive academic and emotional support for international students. So our request this year, we're adding an additional $5,000 to our request. The reason why is we would like to increase our programming even more. The student participation in our programs increased increased a bit in FY 19 and 20. We believe that, with more support, we can do more programming and involve more international and domestic students. And also we would like to support our new student positions to support our West Side students. Our international enrollment on the West Side is really increasing. As you can see, it's increased 100% over the past 4 years. So we do have a lot of international students at Des Moines and Linwood and Sammamish as well. So hopefully I got that all in 10 minutes. And I guess I'd like to open it up for questions. No, I should stop sharing.
Eunice, should I see your hand up?
He's just stretching.
Oh, no.
I have like one question.
Okay.
Okay.
Nikki, I saw that I guess we 1 year just had a tough time finding a student programming coordinator. So I was just kind of wondering, I was like, what process do we have in place to make sure we get those students hired? And then if we were to have more student positions created, how would we make sure those spots get filled?
Right. So again, this was a brand new initiative to, 4 years ago, we didn't have a program coordinator in our office. And so once we hired that person, and then once we got the funding, it was kind of a slow start because those positions weren't in place, but now they are in place. We have a good foundation for the PAs, training and recruiting, and all of that takes time to build. But now that it's been in existence for 4 years, it's pretty stable. I don't know if that answers your question, but
A little bit. I guess another question is like the increase in the funding that would go to be creating these 2 new West Side positions, or do we already have those?
we have one, and we'd like to add another position.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm, mhm.
And Terry, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Nikki, could you tell me you said there's one position on the West Side, so could you tell me what the programming is for West Side international students and what this additional person would add to that?
Sure. Again, it's a peer mentor position, so that student is available for current international students, and they network with the other student positions at the 2 sites. So we just hired this person, but the thought is that they would work with our PAs here, at least right now during the pandemic, to support virtual programming, but also to plan activities on the campuses, both Linwood and Des Moines, for international students. Again, it could just be something like a meet and greet. They would help out with orientation. Right now, we just have one advisor on the West Side, and she does it all by herself, and she looks for alumni or current students to come and help. But by having a PA, a program assistant that's trained in order to, how to field questions and how to really help those students as they're going through new student orientation. So it would just be similar to what we have here on the Ellensburg campus, but it would be to support that growing population on the West Side. Chrissy, I was just going to say, Chrissy, do you have anything to add? Chrissy is the supervisor for our program assistants.
I would just like to say we would also like to add more hours. Currently, our program assistants get up to maybe 5 hours per week. And so we would like to have more programs that we can put on and more involvement by our student employees. So that's also another rationale for that increase.
And Greg, did you have a question?
Yes. What would the impact be if there was a 15% reduction in your current S&A funding?
Well, it would be less programming. We probably wouldn't be able to hire as many program assistants. Maybe only 1 or 2. I think by 4 to 6 is our ideal number, because we like to have a representation of different kinds of students to reach different populations of international students and different majors. So it would really impact our ability to reach different kinds of students and an ability to really expand our outreach to different departments on campus and providing that service. Yeah, Joey?
I know what the programs that you all do. How do you all get feedback or determine what programs to put on for the international students?
That's a great question. At the end of each academic year, we have a student services survey that we put out, and we ask, what events did you go to? What would you like to see? And then usually at the end of the quarter, we ask like students that have participated in International Cafe, what did you like? Would you come again? What ideas do you have for future programming? And then we do have international students living in the iHouse. We survey them. What kinds of things do you want to do with your, American friends? So we do have an annual survey that we look at.
Any more questions?
And I guess, sorry, to go off of that also, we also are approached a lot of times by other departments on campus saying, hey, we have this need, could you put on a program for this? Or, our partner, like the DEC will come and say, hey, we'd like to do this activity, could you help us? So part of that is need driven as well.
And can I just share my personal experience? I was here for another presentation, but I'm an international student. Just a quick experience. I was actually interested in those PA positions, but I know that some of international students actually work for the money, right? Not necessarily for the experience. And I know like some of my friends, even for myself, I wanted to work in the international office, but I heard from some of my friends and the previous PAs that they only give out like 5 to 10 hours a week, and that's not necessarily enough for like students to even just pay their groceries and everything. So just like from outside perspective, I do think they need more funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And that's a great point. A lot of our students can only get, maybe maximum 5 hours. And so they have to piece together 2 or 3 jobs. But they're very interested in this position, so it's worth it to them, but they want to give back to their community.
And Sean, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think just the one question and you might have already said this, I know you said that there's a good amount of growth on the West Side in terms of your program. Like, how many students is that? You show the percentage, just wondering what that number was.
Chrissy, do you have the actual number? I believe we're over 100. We just reached over 100. And 2 years ago, we were in the 60s, like 64. So I can send you the exact detail amount, but and Josh is here somewhere. He should know the, the enrollment. But yeah, that's where we're experiencing most of our growth is on the West Side. Eunice?
I have a just quick question. I'm just curious about it. Like some of the events we are doing, international office doing, like I know that you guys paying like student employees. Also, some events you guys spend money for some expenses, like for example, like there's some event that you guys having expenses on the events, like pumpkin, you guys buying pumpkin. Which funding you guys using that like expenses for? Like you guys using S&A funding for these expenses for materials you guys buying for the events?
It depends on the program.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe we have time for one more question, I believe. All right, any more questions? Seeing none. Eunice, did you have another question? No, okay, so okay, with that, if you can think of any other questions, just email Joey or Lacey, and then we'll get an answer later. Thank you, Nikki, for your presentation. Very nice to have you here.
Yes, well, thank you for the opportunity. And again, thank you for the base funding for the past 4 years. We've made good use out of it, I think, and we hope to continue to do so. So thank you. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces that I haven't seen in person in a long time. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, moving forward, the next presentation is from the Museum of Cultural and Environment, and that is with Hope Amison and Lynn Beth Kay. Whenever you guys are ready.
All right, Hope, do you want to take the introduction while I share the screen?
Sure. So thank you all so much for allowing us to present tonight, and thank you for our funding for the last 4 years. So we're the Museum of Culture and Environment. We are located over in Dean Hall. The Museum of Culture and Environment is really I would say, third museum that has existed on the CWU campus. It is comprised of about 10,000 objects that have been collected by CWU over, well, in some cases, really much of the 20th century, going back in some cases to the 20s and 30s. Next slide, please, Lynn. So our primary mission is to work with diverse communities to create opportunities for lifelong learning that foster self-discovery, global citizenship, and environmental stewardship. And I would like to say that something that makes us different from some of the other people on campus who offer lots of programs as well as exhibits, because we certainly aren't the only ones. And I definitely want to take notice there, Spurgeon, who does this something similar, is that we really make a very conscious attempt to be that bridge between the CWU community, including students, staff, faculty, as well as the Ellensburg community. So we really want to be that bridge, bringing that sense of sort of belonging and community together. And we really pride ourselves in being a place where you can see people from the Ellensburg community on campus hanging out with students. Here are a couple of examples of some of the exhibits that we have brought in over the last few years, some of which were either entirely funded or much of the funding came from S&A funding, or some of the programming came from S&A funding. So you'll notice For All the World to See, Visual Culture and the Struggle for Civil Rights. This was a really important exhibit that was curated and developed by people at the Northwest Museum, or not the Northwest, I'm sorry, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a Smithsonian museum. It detailed the story of African American civil rights in the United States through images. And it was a really important catalyst for us to embark on collaborations with the Black Student Union, which we have kept up since this exhibit. The other exhibit you'll notice is an exhibit that was actually curated by a graduate student. This began as a series of individual studies when the student was an undergraduate. They got really interested in Soviet punk music. They were studying Russian language and history, and then ended up doing this work as a graduate student, approached us and asked if we would be interested in turning their master's thesis into an exhibit. And you know, it worked out really beautifully. And this is an example of one of several students' exhibits that we have produced throughout the last 4 years.
Okay, so
now.
And my light's turned off. So a rundown of quick facts about the museum, because we are still working to get the word out about us. As Hope mentioned, we're located in Dean Hall. In non-COVID times, we're open 20 hours a week. In COVID times, we have been lucky to open, we're at 8 hours a week right now. We had 3,500 plus visitors in 2018-2019, which is our most recent full visitation year. Normally, we host 3 to 7 exhibits per academic year. Those could be either traveling exhibits like the NEH on the Road exhibit, or ones that we could produce in-house working with our faculty, student, and community partners. We usually host 3 to 5 special events per quarter, usually related to exhibits, current events, and student interests. Our staff is made up of 1 part-time faculty director, that's Dr. Hope Amison, a full-time collections manager, that's me, a part-time graduate assistant, 2 S&A funded front desk staff, and 0 to 5 museum studies interns per academic quarter. And again, that's sort of, normal times. As Hope mentioned, we take care of a permanent collection of over 10,000 artifacts. It's not a secret room, but there is a room in Dean Hall where we keep those all safe. And you may not know this, but we opened to the public in 2009. We've hosted more than 55 exhibits and had more than 170 events during our tenure so far. And actually those numbers are old, so they're probably higher. Our organizational chart, we are situated within the College of the Sciences. My position is actually through the Department of Anthropology, which is why we've got this sort of quilt-looking organizational chart. But I do want to point out our Museum Advisory Council. This is an advisory group of faculty, staff, students, and community members who help us determine what direction our programming and exhibits should take. And they're really an essential part of our organization. So S&A funding has allowed us to employ front desk student staff for more hours. We usually employ 2 students for 10 to 12 hours per week. And because of the way we managed our funds, last year we were able to continue the employ of a return student who had run out of work study, which we were really happy to be able to do. Hope, did you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, so we have really increased our collaborations across campus. We're really interested in collaborating with student organizations and student clubs. So if you are a member of one of those kinds of clubs or organizations, let us know if you have ideas for programming exhibits. This has allowed us to bring speakers onto campus, to be able to compensate musicians and other types of performances, to be able to purchase different kinds of supplies for outreach events, whether it's a craft day or a science Saturday. Those are some things that we've been extending our reach into. We are kind of providing a few examples of this below. We, in the fall of 2019, did an expressive arts workshop with an expressive arts practitioner surrounding an exhibit that was featuring the paintings of Jane Orleman, local Ellensburg painter. And these paintings explored her sort of traumatic experiences of childhood assault, sexual assault. And we also were able to bring in speakers like Kari Greer, who is a wildland photographer and takes a wildland fire photographer and takes really beautiful photographs of wildland fire. And then we're able to really provide the sort of extras for events like the event with Mayumi Tsutsukawa, which was sponsored by Humanities Washington and featured a number of really interesting women of Washington State's history. So yeah.
So this was our first quadrennium with S&A funding, and it has been great. We've received $7,550 yearly S&A allocation. Our other primary funding source is the goods and services budget from the College of the Sciences in the amount of $15,000 for fiscal years 18, 19, and 20. That was reduced to $2,000 for fiscal year 21. So overall, goods, services, and student staff cost to date in total between both of our budgets, you can see here. And so one of the big things is that we've been learning to do more with more. We started out small, but by fiscal year 20, if we hadn't been cut off in March, we would have continued to go big and spend all the money we had to spend that year, providing opportunities for our students. So we are requesting $14,795 for the next quadrennium. Our total goods, services, and student employee budget is about $29,795. And it breaks down like this. So the numbers are round and they're a little fungible because as a museum, we tend to be kind of nimble, responding to the needs of programs and having different events and different numbers. So at the core of our request is that front desk staffing, those 2 students. The things in bold are the things that S&A fees in particular support. Traveling exhibits that bring a wider perspective into Ellensburg, and events. So you notice that events number looks pretty big, but a lot of that money stays in the CWU ecosystem. A lot of it goes to the publicity center and to catering to help us put on great events and get the word out on campus and into the community and be that gathering place. Our revenue sources, as mentioned, we also have a foundation account, which is pretty static, occasional donations. We have a donation box in the gallery, which gets less than $100 a year, which then goes into the foundation account. And we have occasional grant funding for projects.
So don't have much time with this, but we do certainly have various uses of our S&A funds. And I'm happy to talk about, if anyone has any questions, future exhibits and programs that we are planning for the next 4 years. We have lots of plans. We plan pretty far in advance. We're already up to planning through 2023 at this point. So,
oops.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, I guess I'll stop the share because I think we're about out of time and my screen failed. Oh.
All right, so any questions? Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned an extensive artifact collection. I was kind of wondering what kind of artifacts, where they're sourced from.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we're actually able to do is start well, we pivoted with COVID and started putting our collections online. So we have objects from all over the world that reflect the interests of the people who collected them, but with strengths in Pacific Northwest basketry. We've got items from Papua New Guinea. They're primarily what you'd call ethnographic or anthropological. It's not art. It is art. They're beautiful things, but it's not like fine art in an art museum context. Thank you, Hope, for putting that link if you want to explore some of the pieces we've got online so far.
And that's our online collection. And of course, we are accountable to the communities, the creator communities that those objects came from. And to our knowledge, objects that were collected by faculty, staff, and students historically at CWU were collected mostly ethically. And when that was not the case, we are working to resolve those issues through restitution in legal means. So,
Gotcha.
Do we keep attendance? Do we keep attendance of event participation? Yes, we are happy to share those figures, and we can share them for the last 4 years if you would like. Actually, that would be something that we would want to do in an email, but we'd be absolutely happy to do that. So.
We don't necessarily have specific numbers of student versus faculty, staff, community. It varies from event to event. We've had some where it's heavily students and some where it's heavily community. Hope, do you have a better idea about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like Lynn was saying, it varies. We don't take surveys at the door and ask people, hey, are you CW affiliated? But we do have different events that will bring in, I think, different kinds of audiences, really. And to be honest, we really do want to be that bridge and not make people feel differentiated in that space.
Messina, I see your hand up.
So you said earlier that you wouldn't mind sharing what events you have planned or you're thinking about for the next 4 years. Would you mind sharing some of those?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Yes, so we actually do have some exhibits already in the works for the next 4 years. Really, I would say going up to 2023. Next winter, we're working with an artist, a photographer named Erica Williams, who recently presented in one of Natasha Lindsay in theater arts, one of her classes. Erica is from Louisville, Kentucky, and has been documenting through photography the Black Lives Matter movement in Kentucky, particularly surrounding police brutality in that space. We are also planning to bring in Indigenous artists from the Spokane tribe, who's going to be showing in the fall of 2021 some artwork he has surrounding canoe technology. We are working with the Smithsonian specifically right now to bring an exhibit called Roots of Wisdom, which is about Indigenous ways of knowing and sort of Indigenous science to campus in the winter of 2023. So those are some plans that we have for the future. We also are hoping to partner with Native American beadwork artists to be able to contrast beadwork from the collection in the museum with contemporary beadwork arts today. So.
And Terry, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So my questions are about the financials. Could you tell me what grants you've applied for in the past 4 years?
Yes. So we've applied for over 500,000 in grants over the last year. We have not been terribly successful. I'm not going to lie. But we have been successful in applying for National Endowment for Humanities grants, particularly preservation assistance grants, to help us be able to take better care of the collection, and it's specifically something that Lynn has worked on. We also were able to bring the NEH on the Road exhibit, the exhibit on African American civil rights and visual culture. That was an NEH grant as well. We have also been able to apply for recently an NEH grant that's going to hopefully help us digitize collections in partnership with creator communities. And we have not received some grants related to the CARES Act, unfortunately, that we applied for through IMLS. We've also applied for the IMLS Inspire grant, which is for small museums, to help small museums be able to undertake really nice, large projects that help them sort of get their name out there and to sort of really institutionalize them within the community. We did not receive the IMLS Inspire, unfortunately, but we are going to reapply next year. So that's what you do.
No, absolutely. If I might also ask, it looks like, so you're increasing what your ask is from S&A, but if I understand correctly, that you're getting a decreased amount from your college?
Currently, yes. We are operating
going forward.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know if you all have the word on the street about what the College of the Sciences budget is like right now, but it's not, word that we're hearing is it's not nice. It's not a good story. So we don't know what our budget's going to be like in the future. We're operating under the idea that we might get our 15,000 back again next year, but I mean, it's looking, as we go further into this year, it's looking like that's less and less likely. So yeah, that is an issue for us, is that we might be dealing with a pretty substantial decrease from the College of the Sciences in the future.
Any more questions? Sean, I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Just a question. I know when we looked at the financials, at least based on the PowerPoint that you showed, looked like it was about 10,000 that was allocated to events. I believe that was correct. When you say that goes back into the community, I know that's part of it, the CW community, but does that also get to bringing in, excuse me, the presenters or, the different kind of artists you bring in? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer honoraria, but we also pay for travel and other kinds of arrangements for speakers. A great example is Kim Coleman, who came from New Orleans last year and was able to present on the history of Black Mardi Gras in New Orleans. It's a wonderful event. It was the last event, just about the last event we did before everything got shut down. But yes, we absolutely do that.
And I will say, in the theme of doing more with more, last year we had really started leaning into bringing in speakers. And I think you would have seen that continue into this year had it been normal.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for about one more question, maybe. And I think I saw Joey's hand first.
I'll let Messina go because I can always send mine via email later.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, thank you. I was just wondering, how do you incorporate student interest into your decisions when you're deciding and creating events?
Absolutely. So we do an annual survey, the same as OISP actually, but we also have, and this is a pitch, we also have 3 student positions on our Museum Advisory Council. And we are looking to expand that. We have written in a request to the Museum Advisory Council to increase that to 5 student positions. So if you or anybody if you know of anybody who wants to sit on a Museum Advisory Council, please contact me, amason@cwu.edu. We only meet once a quarter, but we have a nice long meeting and lots of conversation, and you get to be a part of the deciders on what exhibits and programs to bring in.
Joey, do you think you can fix your question in?
Yep. Well, I can get the question in. I don't know about the answer, so we'll see. My question is, I know with the proposal on the budget that you all have put in, it looked like it was mostly an increase in the goods and services, is what you're kind of anticipating for the next quadrennium. What was that based on? I know you all talked about a lot of plans over the next 4 years, and so was the 25, just about 25,000 in goods and services based on what you're projecting with some of those events, or where was that number coming from?
So to arrive at those numbers, I was looking back at how we had spent our entire funds over the past 3 years, and then adding in an increase as I saw sort of where our monies were lying. And again, I mentioned a little bit that those numbers are squishy just because of the nature of how we do things, how events will change or a speaker will need more travel than another speaker. But yeah, so we were looking at historical trends and then wanting to do more with more.
All right, and with that, we are out of time for questions. If you can think of anything else, just email Joey or Lacey. They'll get to us eventually. Thank you, Hope and Lynn, for coming out. Very nice presentation. We appreciate you coming out today.
Thank y'all.
For having us.
Okay. Our next presentation is the Virtual Analytics Lab with Han Donker.
All right. Actually, Han Donker had to run to class at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to be filling in for him together with Jargal Gonzorek. My name is Tony Shipich. I'm the Economics Department Chair, and let me share my screen here so I can share with you what we're working on here. So our proposal is to get funding for the Virtual Analytics Lab. So the Virtual Analytics Lab is kind of the idea came up from the collaboration across College of Business as well as environmental studies students and a committee on responsible investments on campus. We are pretty much trying to analyze how companies behave, and we need access to some of these corporate databases. One of the projects that we are working on with the students from Accounting Club, Finance Club, Environmental Studies Club, as well as various graduate students from CERN program and departments across campus is trying to assess the sustainable investments on campus. President Gaudino had one of those 3 goals of his, and one of those was that we need to decrease our carbon footprint and so on. And as a part of our recent STARS rating, ASHE STARS rating, which is environmental rating of the university, we got rated as a bronze rating. Our lowest rating of them all was the rating on our investments. In other words, Central Washington University did not invest in a sustainable way, or it didn't take into account any social or governance issues into account. So several faculty members and students and staff members across campus created this ad hoc committee called CWU Council on Investment Responsibility that Jargal and myself and Han are part of. And we have since then created opportunities for students, faculty, and staff alike to analyze our investments, and we're in the middle of the process of doing that. So maybe, you know, Jargal, you can come in and say a few words about, from the student perspective, what you guys are doing, what we're doing on here, and then I'll proceed with the presentation.
Yeah, sure. So as Tony said, I'm here to provide some student perspective. So I'm part of the Council on Investor Responsibility, as Tony said. I'm also part of Finance Club and Accounting Club, and as well as Economics Club. So I'm actually majoring in economic finance and minoring in finance and accounting at College of Business. So it really does help students with analytical and research skills, which are vital when we go out in the job market. So we work as a team. As Tony said, it's a team that consists of faculty, student, and staff. And actually, I could share a little bit of story, a little quick story before Tony presents. I recently accepted an internship offer from Deloitte, and one of the interviewers was actually, she was really passionate about sustainability issues and everything like that. And so I was able to talk what we did here in Sustainable Investment Council. The reason I think was I was a little bit lucky for sure, but at the same time, it really does help students with those valuable experience and resume building. And I do think the database that Tony's going to talk about will help open that door for Central. So obviously, on top of being helping the university accomplish its sustainability goals, I do think it is a very valuable opening door of database for Central.
Great. Thank you very much, Argyle. And just to add on to that, our goal of this committee is to utilize this information about each corporation that we're investing in, and then comparing other potential investments to see if we can get the same return on investment while meeting our university's mission to become more sustainable and so on. So this is a part of the grassroots movement, actually, the students, faculty, and staff coming together to address this issue. And it's something that's happening all across the country. Universities are going fossil fuel free and so on. Our committee is actually going a step beyond that. We're not looking just to kick off coal companies or fossil companies. We also have access, and the accounting department has purchased a database called the Environmental Social Government ISS database that allows us to score corporations across 300 categories, anything from how much they're recycling, are they paying the union members, to variety of other social and ethical decision making activities. Now, that's what we're doing, and the reason why we are here is that we need your help in to continue to do this and take us to the next level. And for that, we need to purchase the so-called WORDS, which is Wharton Research Data Services. So we have access to some of these databases that we purchased ourselves and so on. But what we're kind of finding out is that it's very hard for everybody to access these databases because we get them in as Excel sheets or in a kind of proprietary software that only a few people can use at a time and so on. And this WORDS database would allow us to, by using a cloud web platform, for anybody on campus to access these particular services. So what WORDS is again a platform that would bring us some additional databases, but most importantly, it would allow us to kind of share and distribute the existing data that we have. And as I said, the activities, this is just one sample of the activities that we're working on. There's many more that we're considering down the road. Recently, we were contacted, for example, by Jessica Mayhew on the account of their group working on preventing any CW's investment into palm oil related stuff. So our databases and this type of database would allow us and students and people in those groups to access information about different companies and so on, and analyze them, and then make kind of better decisions in both what Central invests, or students as a part of their extracurricular activities can do these types of research projects. And usually these types of databases are available at some research institutions and so on, but because we currently have faculty that have both the interest and expertise in this area, we can finally offer access to these types of activities to our students on campus. We're looking to get 4 years of funding for WORDS, which is quite pricey. And the key thing again about WORDS is to kind of spread this access about corporate data on environmental social governance, but we're not limited to that. We're talking about spreading that access on all kinds of company information. And as I said, this is something that is not just limited to the College of Business. We're working with students across the campus, and we're having quite a significant interest in that. Now, our funding request is very simple. WORDS costs about $40,000 a year on average. In the first year you get it for $35,000, second for $40,000, third year $45,000. So on average, $40,000 a year. And we are kind of pretty much building up to afford something like this. And we would need about $20,000 a year from this funding request. The College of Business, in particular, the accounting department, would work through their potential, getting funding from their, earnings from their MPA program or their foundation. Money is about $10,000. Library would potentially help us with $10,000. I mean, there's some, commitments that have been negotiated there. and then with your guys' help, $20,000 a year for a total of $80,000 over 4 years, we could actually make this happen. It would, as I said, help us, access more students, in particular students on the west side. Right now, we've been mostly focusing on the east side students because we don't have easy way to distribute all this information, and our kind of decision-making process on how to make these sustainable investments has really slowed down because of COVID, and because there isn't an easy way for us to distribute it and analyze this data. Words would pretty much solve that problem. And as I said, this is just one example. There's many other that I can come up with. But without further ado, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Bjorn, I see your hand up.
Hi. So I actually had two questions. The first one was, I'm not a financial guy, so can you explain to me a little bit of how Words works and why it's worth the potentially $20,000 that S&A would be giving, as opposed to coordinating with like Google Sheets? I know that's going to sound really silly to a finance person, but I'm not a finance person, bear with me.
That's absolutely a great question. So very simply, these are very, very large databases, and we're talking about, some of them we already purchased are hundreds of gigabytes of data. So we are, even with our existing, G drives, N drives, and things like that, it's very hard for people to, you can dump all the data on people, but just to be able to access a piece of information is hard, because just having data is one thing, but getting information from that data is the hard part. And what Words does, it gives you a platform to easily access, filter out data, and so on. Excel, for example, or Google Sheets and so on, you can maybe get between 100,000 to 1 million rows, and for it to work relatively easily. When we're talking about much larger databases, you simply can't utilize these. And that's what Words does. Through their cloud computing platform, it allows us to very quickly access this data. Otherwise, students, we are finding out, have to spend a lot of time learning, how to do all this data analytics and so on, which in the end we end up with, economics students, advanced finance, and accounting students. But we definitely want to afford these opportunities to, especially students in the College of the Sciences, in environmental studies areas, and so on, as well as anybody that's interested in social governance, right? Sociology students, political science, public policy students that would not necessarily need to have the knowledge of advanced data management to access this basic information.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And is usage of the theoretical Words database, would that be like integrated with colleges outside of College of Business in the academic coursework, as you kind of alluded to?
So yeah, we would definitely use it in our curriculum. My understanding is for this request, it's for extracurricular activities, and that's what we're focusing our request on. But we definitely, as you can see, some of this money, or half of the money, would be coming from the library as well as the College of Business, on the account of our use in the curricular stuff. They're already starting to use some of this in their Masters of Public Accountancy courses and the programs. In our economics department, we're starting to use it, and so on. But again, we're facing the same type of an issue. Can't go to 200 level class with students with limited Excel experience and say, here's 100 gigabytes of data, go spend 2 weeks of coding to just get one statistic, right? Words lets you do that very quickly. That's why they charge so much money for it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Just to add on that a little bit, I do believe, as I said previously, I do think that other organizations, even like academic organizations or just firms, I think they're leaning towards more onto those sustainability initiatives. And I do believe that other schools and other larger schools, essentially in Washington, like UW, Seattle University, and Western Washington University, they utilize those databases to make analysis on their investment portfolios. And I do think that this purchase of this database will help us kind of like catch up on those kind of analysis, and hopefully contribute even just a little bit to that university goal of reducing carbon footprint by 5% in the next 5 years.
And Terry, I see your hand up.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify that you're only asking, your sum total is 80,000. You're not asking for 80,000 a year.
No,
right?
no.
20,000 a year.
Correct.
Okay. Does the Words platform, how is that, will that be, will students need to take a class in order to be able to utilize it, or is it intuitive enough that they would be able to figure that out on their own?
Great question. So Word is intuitive that you can do it on your own, and that's the advantage of Words compared to these other kind of access points that we have, such as CRISP database that we already have, the ISS, even Capital IQ, which is somewhat easier than many other ones. But Words is very, very simple. So definitely wouldn't have to take a class. And importantly, this is something that would reside within the library. So it would be on that databases page, so students would be able to access it that way.
And Greg, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just trying to wrap my head around the whole what the ask is here, and so it would be, so I would go to the library's website to access this database, and I'm trying to understand how how it might be used outside of academics, right? So that it really feels like this would be part of academics, and I'm thinking of it, and maybe a bad comparison is Adobe Creative Suites, right? So that was somewhat department specific, and then eventually the university realized that many areas and colleges use it, and so at that level, and it's been a few years since that was decided, at the university level to go ahead and get a site license for Acrobat, for Adobe Creative Suites, so that everybody on campus could use it. And I'm just thinking that, is that a more appropriate route for this kind of ask? Because it doesn't feel like it seems more associated with academics and that sort of thing. And maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
While academics can use these databases and so on for their research, most professors themselves don't need necessarily Words to access data. They don't know how to manage data and so on. Right now, this program that we're part of, the CWU Council on Responsible Investments, that's a non-academic entity. That's it's an ad hoc group that is reporting to Joel Clucking. So it is completely within a non-academic unit on campus. And we're assessing the CWU's investments, again, totally a non-academic. I can't publish a paper on that. No one's going to accept that, right? It's literally trying to help the university figure out how we can invest in a more sustainable way and social way, which clearly would have benefits both, towards us reaching our kind of mission and goals of the university that President set forward, as well as potentially creating opportunities for other people in the community and so on to assess their own, kind of investment. And that's, again, one example, one small cross section of what this type of database can do. That so many different questions can be answered to it, because we do have this kind of company level data. So as I said, it's not so academic focused, it's more business side focused. Like, if you're going to make investments, how do you make investments in a way that are socially and environmentally sustainable and responsible?
And I can quickly add on to that. Like I said, this council is consists of very diverse kind of group. So students from a lot of different majors, a lot of different colleges, and there's people from sustainability departments, accounting office departments, not necessarily academics. So it's kind of like a council of all those people from different departments kind of bundled together to help the university make better decisions on their investment portfolio.
And how large is this council? And what would be the estimate of how many students would actually use this system outside of academics?
So the council itself is about a dozen people, kind of equally distributed between faculty, staff, and students. And then the council is there to give recommendation to the CFO and then up the chain on our investments. But the subgroup, for example, that several of us are working on that's outside of this council is the one that's actually working on analyzing some of this information that's going to be presented to the council. So in other words, the main group that's analyzing information is not even necessarily part of the council. This data that we currently have is available to the rest of the campus community as a whole. In terms of the number of students over 4 years that could access this, I mean, at a minimum, when you think about accounting students, finance students, economics students, environmental studies students, and so on, if some portion of those students becomes a part of it. And if we look at what other universities have done across the United States on dealing with these types of issues, anything from disinvestment in fossil fuels and so on, it tends to be in the hundreds of students over that time. So the key thing here is it would create a research opportunity where we would connect the academic expertise that we now have in Central Washington with the institutional needs of reaching sustainable and social goals, and the student wanting to learn how to do that, from anything from data analysis to policy decision making and stuff like that. And then importantly, this is again just one such project that we're working on. We can do so many different other projects, such as the palm oil stuff and so on. That's what this database allows us to do. So many different things, and then it's kind of hard to predict, if how many students would do that, but in the hundreds for sure.
And with that, I believe we're out of time for questions.
Lacey doesn't have time.
Yeah,
Okay.
we could add a little more time if we wanted to do that, or we could email.
I'll just email
you
my
this.
questions.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you
right, so
very
we'll
much
do that.
for hearing us out, and we're looking forward to hearing back from you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Up next, we have the Money Savvy Wildcats with Carlos Smith and Steele Campbell.
Carlo, I think you might be muted.
I am muted. I
There you
keep
go.
doing that. Forgive me, guys. Thanks for the invitation to come talk to you. And I'll just say again, can everybody see my screen okay? Yeah.
Yes.
So we're here to talk about a new funding possibility. We're calling it Money Savvy Wildcats, and I'll get back to that in just a second. What we're talking about is the issue of financial well-being. So I think we have 26 people in this group right now. If I asked you each how well you felt in terms of your financial well-being, I would probably get 26 different stories. And if I asked you now while you're in college, the concept of financial well-being is probably different than when it comes time to graduate, when you get that first job, when you get a little bit older like me. Things change along the way. So when we're talking about financial well-being, we're talking about four things. We're talking about the ability to control day-to-day and month-to-month finances. Actually, with this group, it might be quarter-to-quarter finances. How do I prepare myself for next quarter tuition payments? What do I have to do about books and things like that? What's my day-to-day expense if I have a job down in Yakima and I need to drive back and forth to work? Another component of it is capacity to deal with financial shocks. I think we've all must be experiencing some financial shocks associated with the whole situation with COVID going on right now. But financial shocks can come in many different ways. It could be the fact that, again, if you're working down somewhere else in Yakima or Cle Elum, or if you live on the west side and you're out of Des Moines and you're working over in Renton and your car breaks down and it's $1,000 expense to try to fix that car. Or if you have, I have some very good friends who have 2 cats. One of the cats got ill, and it was a very significant expense that they had to make a decision about in terms of caring for that cat going forward. So it's a financial shock that happens at a period of time. How do you maintain a path towards your financial goals? So again, as a college student, my guess would be that for many, financial goals have to do with how do I finish up school with the least amount of loans? And how do I go about starting to pay off those loans when I get out of here so I can get that out of the way and start looking at the rest of my life? And those types of financial goals will change throughout your life. Again, for me, I'm starting to look down the road. Well, I started to look before, and I probably should have started to look before that about how to start thinking towards my retirement goals. And then finally, it comes down to having the financial freedom to make choices that contribute to enjoying life. So think of it this way. Some people get a great deal of joy out of going out with their backpack and camping up in the wilderness. Other people want to go to Las Vegas. Now, financial means and financial well-being can affect both of those. I'm not saying that going to Las Vegas is really a smart thing to do, but again, it's how do your personal interests change and how do they affect the financing situation that you're in right now? So what we're proposing is what we're calling right now, and some of this could change based on student involvement, is Money Savvy Wildcats. So the mission for this group is to improve the financial well-being of CWU students, staff, faculty, and members of the surrounding community. So again, it could be individuals in this room, it could be individuals that live in Ellensburg, or it could be individuals, students and the population up in Wenatchee, or down in Yakima, or over in Des Moines and places like that. What we're trying to do here is this is a student helping student organization. So it's student helping students, helping CWU employees, helping the local community improve their financial well-being through different things. Some of it has to do with individual coaching, and we'll talk about what goes into that. But as you can imagine, that individual coaching can happen in a face-to-face environment someday when we all get back together, or it may be an online environment, just like we're doing right now. Some of it may involve doing group presentations and workshops. So talking about different financial strategies to a group. At some institutions, they have this great thing going where, let's say a faculty member can't make a class. Do you cancel the class, or do you last minute bring in somebody to talk about some aspect of personal finance or financial literacy that could benefit those students and they can get something out of that? A third part is curating, developing, and maintaining an online resource. So for any of us, we could go out to Google and we could type in something about financial security or something about loans or something about insurance, and a lot will come up. But is it stuff that's been vetted? Is it stuff that is going to be effective for you to understand, to be able to apply? And how do you take that information and make it usable? It might be delivering some topical webinars that would then be included within our database, so you say, or a podcast. And finally, it could be hosting guest speakers. So hosting a guest speaker might be, we have specific questions about mortgage. We have some students, particularly in the Seattle area, that are non-traditional students. And I'm sure there are in Ellensburg. And if I think about staff and faculty, there are people there that have questions about mortgages. It's not a sales pitch here. It's about understanding how mortgages can be used to secure a house for your family. So these are some of the things that the group would be working on. Where they would be doing it really spans across CWU as we see it. The core of the group would come out of Ellensburg, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't have students in any of the centers, or we couldn't do outreach to the centers through online activities. In some cases, if we're doing a workshop, we might be doing a workshop at the Linwood location, and that way students there, staff there, other folks there can participate, and we're doing it on site. So that's more of a dynamic as to how we implement this organization. Types of things that they might talk about. And again, these are things that are in development, but we also have good exemplars of this. Budgeting basics, securing financial aid. What's good about having a credit score, and how do I manage my loans? Now, you know, I would expect that all of you could maybe answer a few of these things, but you may not be able to be aware of everything here. And at the same time, you might know of colleagues and friends that have certain questions about this stuff, and they're not too sure where to go to and who that they can talk to. And so this provides a resource to start to A, find current and accurate information, B, maybe find somebody that they can talk to on their own level that can help explain this. But how do we make sure that those folks are good? Well, this is an organization, again, as we said, it would be predominantly students. And students are not necessarily coming from the College of Business. We have students from sciences that are interested in something that's going on in financial literacy right now. Same thing with computer science. So really, the first part of it is an individual's commitment to wanting to work with others. And then the second part of it is applying and getting interviewed for the program, and then going through topic level certifications. So as we talk about different things, maybe we're talking about loan questions. They would go through some training on loans and things like that, and be evaluated on that to the point where we feel comfortable that they can provide the resource to other individuals. The other part of it involves coaching skills, where we might bring in to do peer observations to make sure that things get handed off and people are familiar and know how they can communicate effectively with others. There would be ongoing continuing education, and most importantly probably is this idea about ethics training and really a commitment to confidentiality. And that's something that we would be documenting with anybody that's involved with the operation. What's the impact, or how would we evaluate the impact? Well, certainly some of it comes just by raw numbers. Documenting the number of individuals served in a one-on-one coaching environment in any quarter or any year. Or documenting how many presentations or workshop and how many folks attended those workshops, so we can see the numerative implications we have. The other part of it is, how do we connect with people? And some of that would come through anonymous feedback from either the one-on-one or the group sessions, having a way to do that. And perhaps, and we've all talked about this, I think, across the board, and some of it has to, well, 2 minutes, there's 1 minute remaining, okay. There's the opportunity to do an annual survey of students and faculty and staff about their own perceptions of financial well-being. The money allocation would go to approximately 5 to 7 student coaches as part of a work-study program. We're also looking to support a program manager, a program controller. So this is a credentialed individual that would provide the training and oversight to help make sure that these things go on well. Goods and services for system support, for scheduling and travel costs if we're doing things out around. And then, and we're working from our perspective to fund grants and gift solicitations that would help to fund this and hopefully fund the growth as we go forward. Finally, the organization structure, my colleague Steele Campbell, who will be able to answer some of these questions, he's a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, as well as a JD and a PhD in financial planning. The program manager is one we're trying to fill, and then the individual work studies who would be providing and overseeing the organization. And we've got some really good examples. So these are some institutions. I will say, you know, we're really fortunate. Texas Tech is the largest and probably the best, most effective financial planning program in the country. And Steele comes from Texas Tech when he came to join us. So he brings a lot of skills and capabilities in this area on how to develop it. They've got a tremendous operation going. So I'm sorry if I ran over a little bit. I'm sure myself and Steele will be happy to answer questions for y'all.
Eunice, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question about, so first of all, I want to understand exactly, this program is going to be helping the students on the academic, like coaching about the financial related, right?
Yeah, so if you are having a question about you're buying a car and you need to look at loans and you're just not sure how to approach that and what the implications are for credit and stuff, maybe that's something that you want to get some additional insight on. Or maybe, again, you're having a little trouble meeting some payments or something like that, and you're saying, maybe I could budget better. What's a better way to look at that? So then you could go to a coach, you could attend a presentation or something like that. We would have tools that could be downloaded that you could use to help develop your understanding better.
So my question is that, so for that, I'm a political science major, and whenever I have issues myself or on my academic, I go to my advisors and departments are helping me on that. I don't know, like this thing you are doing is already a financial department or business department not supposed to do that. I mean, why we are creating another program for the helping students on these issues?
Okay, I think this is an important thing to understand. This isn't a program as in an academic program. This is basically a service program. And so these individuals, you, even as a political science major, if you had an interest in wanting to help others better understand how they can take care of themselves financially, you could be part of this. And so it is a service that expands to all. I would say that I'm not aware, and Greg, you might be able to help me understand this. I think we do have some services that help with student loans and financial aspects of that, but probably not as many that address personal financial issues.
And I think it would lend a little bit of clarity to everybody here to understand what we're targeting. Most of the studies that are out regarding college dropout rates and the reasoning behind college dropout, one of the biggest, if not the biggest reasons that students list for leaving college without completion is financial pressure. And it's anywhere from 40% of dropouts to 55% in some studies. It's enormous. And so what this group is meant to do is to help catch those students before it becomes a problem that they feel they can't continue on in their educational career. What happens is these students find themselves in a position that they may feel is untenable, or they may feel precludes them from continuing their education, but they can approach these coaches and have a one-on-one session or multiple one-on sessions regarding cash and debt management, loan financing, and even opportunities to receive other forms of financial aid, whether it's food banks, whatever it is. And that can help keep them and give them hope as to continuing their educational career and not feeling like there's only one solution here, and that is to drop out. Does that help answer your question, Eunice? This is available to all students, not just finance or College of Business students. Every student at the university will have access to these coaches. The coaches themselves can also come from any program that they want to, as long as they have a desire to help others and are willing to become experts in personal finance.
Thank you so much. I understand better right now. Thank you.
Let's go with Lacey and then Bjorn.
Okay, let's see if I can unraise my hand here. I've got a couple of questions. So, and I apologize if you said this in there, but the first question that I have is that you mentioned the program manager. Is that, it looked like it was a 0.4 FTE, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that already somebody that's employed, or would that be potentially a new full-time position?
It would be a new position. It would be a new position that we would expect to combine with somebody that actually teaches in our financial planning program. So there are professionals. I mentioned Steele is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. That's kind of like being a CPA. It's really a rigorous capability. Our intention, because we actually lost a faculty member last year, went to another school. So part of the responsibilities for this person will be to support our students. That would be the non-0.4. The 0.4 would be dedicated to making sure that we've got this operation. And as you can imagine, especially when we're talking about these sensitive issues. We have to be very rigorous and very thorough when we work with our students or work with any student to help out with this. Did that address that?
Yeah, I think so. And so I kind of have a follow-up to that. Is it possible to still have this program without the program manager?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't think so, because I think it's going to be a heavy lift to put in place the resources to organize the students, to provide, they're going to need some additional non-course material. You know, they have to make a commitment to being trained in these areas. And so it's not anything that I have other clubs that I'm engaged in. And the other part of this is something that is ongoing. So if you have presidents in an organization that is turning over every year, which we do in this, but again, we would be throughout the year training up new people. So it's that type of need to kind of keep the flow going.
Yeah, I'll back up Carlo on this. I think that because of the required expertise that is going to be required of the students, on an annual basis, we're going to have to train 4 to 6 new students every year and provide them with enough feedback and training in order to do that. And I think that we would need somebody in a permanent position to be able to do that, at least at that 0.4 FTE that Carlo pointed out.
Great, thank you. And then my last question, hopefully, is an easy one. I just wanted to confirm, is this going to be a free service to the students?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're happy to show you some similar type programs at other locations if you like.
Thank you.
And Bjorn had a question next.
Yeah, I wanted to address, like, are there any other services at CWU that do similar things? Like, I understand the advising office does a little bit of financial help, but that's mostly with student aid. And I know that the finance department does classes that I probably should have gotten in high school, but, you know, American education system. Is there going to be room for this? Obviously, I can't take a finance class here because my credit load is full, but is there an ongoing necessity for this kind of financial advising? I don't mean to call your whole operation into jeopardy, but
No. I think there's two things. I think if you were to survey students across the institution at different locations in different socioeconomic areas, and those very few get that kind of education in high school, and very few take our 174 class, which is a basic one for people. So being able to address those folks, to my knowledge, there is nothing other than our normal financial aid types of questions for that. So if you were to come to me and say, how do I budget better for myself because I'm really having a hard time and I need somebody to guide me, then some people don't take the initiative as well as others might.
Yeah, I think you prefaced that question perfectly, Bjorn. A lot of students come to college without this expertise, without this knowledge. And as far as my feeling is, I feel a lot of people think that they can budget well for themselves. But the questions where people get themselves into trouble is, I had to buy new tires for my car and now I've got this $700 on my credit card. What's the best way to handle that? Should I pay it all off at once, right at the beginning of the quarter? Should I pay it down in lumps, like little bits? And being able to come to somebody and ask them those questions and get that objective feedback can really give students a lot of confidence moving forward in their financial lives.
I would say one more thing is that some of your colleagues are non-traditional students, military, places like that have different types of questions about mortgages, about credit scores, about those types of things. That again, this is an important capacity that they really could benefit from.
If I may, I'll actually even just share a story that is ongoing in my life. So I teach in the personal financial planning program, and every year when I talk about taxes in any of my courses, invariably 2 or 3 of my students will say, well, I use some of my scholarship money to buy an Xbox or to buy a new car or to do something. And I have to be like, ugh. And the question is it taxable? And these are PFP students. These are financial planning students who have these questions for me. I can't imagine how many students there are out there who are not being efficient with their finances and how a service like this could help them. So
I know we want to get to Greg anyways if we can.
Sorry, Greg.
Thank you, guys.
I think we're out of time for questions. Joey, is that right? Or
It depends. If Greg has a quick question, we have time for the question.
There's nothing quick about my question. I was thinking of Dave Ramsey and writing, letters to him, but for advice. So, anyways, I'll write them down. I have a lot of questions. So
terrific.
All right. And for anyone else who has questions, just email Joey or Lacey. They'll get us answer sometime next week. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, so onward. The next presentation is the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and that is with William Probansink.
Very good.
Oh, sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you. I know you're all doing a long night here. I know you get a lot of them. My presentation maybe is not quite so long, but it's pretty simple. I'll just kind of walk through this real quick here. So I'm Bill Probansink. I'm the director of the Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It sounds big, but it's kind of an army of one. And let me see if I can use this correctly. And as you can tell, I'm not the expert in making PowerPoint slides. I try to put way too much on the slide, but it gives you some look at besides me. So our org chart is like this. It's the dean, me, and a bazillion volunteers. And what I'd like to do, what I'm asking is, we need help. And I mean, we and the volunteers. I have professional volunteers, but I mostly have student volunteers. And it is maybe the most exciting part of my job is working with the energy of the students. What I'm asking for, two paid student positions. I'm also asking for some support for, sorry, but food. I know that's kind of hard to support, but I'll explain that here real shortly. So 2 student employees, Institute of Entrepreneurship, or Institute of Innovation Entrepreneurship. We're volunteers. We build small business and self-employment opportunities for CWU students. One of the things that is kind of underplayed here at the university is there's a lot of students here who are self-employed, and there's even more students who have good ideas on how to make good self-employment opportunities, but we really don't have an outlet to do that. Students have been going to their faculty across campus. I've known that since we did business plans, and they ask their faculty, and the faculty give them help. Faculty are really limited in their time and sometimes their expertise, and so what they have been doing is they send them my way. One of my challenges is I only have so much capacity also with the things that I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to expand that. We're trying to hire faculty too, but that would still be insufficient for some of the things that student employees could help with. We're also trying to hire a student employee to support what we call a mini phase of entrepreneurship as well. Bottom line, our mission is to make business ownership a reality for students whose backgrounds typically lack the chance for entrepreneurship as a career. One of the cool things, the very cool thing about Central Washington University is we have a very specific set of communities that we focus on, and we do a particularly good job at. Our mission focuses on making more career opportunities available for them so that they can get a job, but if they get in a job, they don't get stuck in that job. They can come up with an idea, get out of the job. They can come up with an idea that will help their community and their family get in a better position. So informal survey, one of my adjunct partners came to the CERC and spent a day just asking students, so, are you self-employed, and ask a bunch of other things. And to my surprise, 10% of them are self-employed. So you think we have 12,000 students here, there's maybe 1,200 students that might be self-employed with ideas. And what what kind of supports me with that is one time we had a talk, we've had a number of talks, but one time after the talk, I asked students just to fill out a spiral notebook page with their name and contact number. I got 68 students that wanted help starting a business, and I wasn't able to help all of them adequately. We did the best we can, but it was more like, here, you go here, it's this triage. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of opportunity to bring students into like starting a business, but there's also opportunities to help students not get into trouble with the businesses they got. I got an example here. This may or may not be iced tea, and these students were making it on the side. Operating a business without a business license is a gross misdemeanor, but doing things like not filling bottles full of iced tea is more serious than that. We help the students get into a better situation, but that's the kind of thing, all the enthusiasm needs some help. So anyway, what we could use is somebody who's there can just kind of channel students to where we can get legal advice, mentor search, where can you get somebody to get some help, simple tax advice, financial advice, marketing advice, strategic, where do we go from here? Even getting an awareness that we can do this kind of a thing and support even talks or workshops or bringing students together with similar ideas so that we can bring somebody in to kind of help them get where they need to go would be a big step forward for us. Oh yeah, I forgot. We have a 3D printer. We have 2 3D printers, and some of our best business ideas have came from people who just came in and I had a chance to talk to one of my adjuncts, and it's like, oh, you know what? I have this crazy idea. What if we had like a device to put on a wine bottle so people could drink like a baby out of a wine bottle? Sound like a dumb idea, right? The guy made a lot of money off of this by packaging it. He just built it on our 3D printer. Our home run, puppy feet for walkers at senior living facilities. One of our students had an idea. She just wanted to employ people with challenges. And so what she did is she went, watched old folks, and she noticed that they used tennis balls and their walkers, put these on there, prototyped it there. One thing leads to another. She walks into my office with a $500,000 personal check from a guy she had lunch with who said, you know what, this is a pretty good idea. Now she's cranking these things out on the west side of Ellensburg, these and little like truck fronts for walkers. That's the kind of enthusiasm that I don't want us to lose. So anyway, I need help with that. And we also need help with this other thing too. And this is a fun thing that just kind of emerged. We started putting on these workshops around the state called Many Phases of Entrepreneurship. And what it was is to bring opportunities from the high schools or the communities that our students come from to kind of show them that we are here at CWU and we can help them start business. But the key thing was we had student volunteers go to these various areas and kind of like mentor the students in starting a business in a one-day workshop. It started out with no mentors, and then we started with 20, and now we're up to, in a year, we have hundreds of CWU mentor volunteer students who want to go back to their communities and help people like them get excited about entrepreneurship. And in the meantime, our students kind of learn about entrepreneurship, but they also kind of get a chance to kind of reach back and share with them. What do our students get? They get the opportunity to learn, practice, teach entrepreneurship because we train them how to do product development on the fly and then practice it. But they also get to work with the younger members of their own communities. Cool thing is we have regional and national entrepreneurs come in as volunteers, and they work with our students, working with the high school kids at the same time. And it's a pretty big deal. Last year, before everything kind of blew up, we had 274 CWU students work with over 2,000 Washington State high school students. What I would like to do when we get going, and I know we can do it, but I kind of need help. I'm sure we're going to get a grant to support the facilities, but I want to hit 366 CWU students with 3,000 high school students in Washington State. It's just an example of the events that we've done over time. Next year, we're going to be doing it all over the state, east side, west side. Student volunteers can come from all across the state. We'll also be doing this online on a Minecraft platform, which is what is new for any university to try this. This is on the right side is an example of the communities that we work with. Those are the poverty rates in the communities. And this is part of the enthusiasm for our student volunteers that come in, and they come from these areas, and they really want to help their communities out, and they share with that. So what we need is an MFE coordinator. So one student employee would help keep this going by each of the events. They would be running the super judges, or the celebrity judges that come in. We'd have a room boss, which are senior student volunteers that run junior student mentors who run the high school kids through the process. We also have a set of student actors who act like famous characters that the high school kids go and they interview. And we have logistics, we have, there's a whole set of roles in this. And I have a slide at the end to show if somebody has a question about that. Anyway, for this whole program, my big ask for next year, 366 plus 70 CWU students is what I plan to help. It's a low ball, but I want to give like an idea, like the worst case scenario, what we'll be doing. I would like to ramp that up. If we leverage these student employees to help CWU entrepreneurs, I know we can help 200 entrepreneurs a year get their businesses either started or get them out of a bad place to help them be self-employed and kind of get them on their way. Right now, just baseline, I'm figuring 3,000 attendees just with the MFE. We will have talks if I can get the slack to build these, because we have the enthusiastic alumni who want to come in and share. We have a guy who has 10% of the Bitcoin on the planet up in Wenatchee. He wants to come down and work with our students. I just don't have the bandwidth to bring things up. That's like amazing, right? We will be measuring the diversity of individuals served. They need to represent the communities that are in our various locations. Number of student businesses owners generated. We'd like to start businesses. We want to launch startups, and those are next year's targets. And that's kind of the end of my presentation. These are all entrepreneurs that we've started over the years, and they all have amazing stories. So, thank you.
Any questions? Brandon, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just kind of one question about the multiple faces engaging with the high school students. Is this kind of like a recruitment type initiative where you're trying to recruit this projected 3,000 high school student engagements?
That would be nice if the university acknowledged that it might be a recruiting channel, but they never have. They've just said, this is a nice thing. But what it is, it's an outreach to the communities to bring the availability of entrepreneurship as a career to them. There's a serious brain drain in ESD 105, which is the Yakima school system right in the middle of Washington State. They are having a problem with all of the tech STEM students leaving. They get trained up, they leave, they never come back. They really want us to come and help them build communities of people who can start businesses and keep some of that enthusiasm in their own location.
Thank you.
And Terry, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting my brain wrapped around what it is that we'll be funding. So if I understand this correctly, what you're asking for S&A is to fund is student positions. 2
students. We will have 2 trained students to perpetuate the training of these 2 programs.
Okay, so basically we would be funding 2 part-time, 2 20-hour-a-week positions.
Affirmative.
And that's what the $22,000 is for?
Yes.
Okay.
Plus, I'm asking this, and I know you'll think about it, plus some money to pay for food for these hundreds of volunteers who work all day long, and no donors ever want to pay for food, and they don't like paying for labor either. I can get everything else.
So could you give me like a breakdown? So what money is going for the two positions and what money is going for the food?
Cool, thanks. 16,000 for 2 students, 6,000 something for food.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg, I see your hand up.
I get to ask a question. So this is, I mean, this program is already going on, right? I mean, you've got the evidence, you've got the numbers to show the success. So this is just about an ask to hire students to continue to grow the program. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, actually, I'm in a bit of a pinch because the grant that was paying for my student position up to last year is gone. And so nothing lucky about COVID except for the fact I don't have any money to have to scramble for this year. For the entrepreneurship advisory part, this is a new ask for a position that's never been done before.
Okay, and then you list 43,000 from other funds. Who's that from?
So that's an anticipated, I'll be able to get money number. I'm working on a grant from a West Seattle anonymous set of donors that fund West Side kind of activities. There's also $15,000 for the Institute for Innovation Entrepreneurship that they have for an institute fund, and that will almost entirely go to the MFE program. And so that will supply things like a little bit of facilities and some t-shirts.
Okay, thanks.
Messina, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you said this in your presentation, but how do you plan to train your student workers to help advise these young entrepreneurs?
We do have an entrepreneurship program with students who are at various stages of the program. For part of the training will be training at what point do you not give advice, like giving people tax advice, iffy, but directing them where they can get advice and some basic things like, okay, well, here's a sole proprietorship versus an LLC. Here's some cases of where you can go. One of the trickiest parts about starting small businesses for people not familiar with it is that it's not that they can't find the information, there's just too much. And so having somebody say, you don't need this so much, but if you go here, this is the body of things that you can go to. Plus, here's somebody you can call. That's the strategy of the student advisor.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions? Joey.
Bill, I know you mentioned with the other funds you've looked at grants and other donors and things, which is phenomenal, especially the amount that you kind of have projected there. Have there been any other funding sources sought internally within the university?
So I did try to get the provost's office 2 years ago to support this as a recruiting effort, and I got that's interesting. We'll think about it, and it never went anywhere. If I can keep this going and I can show that it's valuable to other departments, what I would like to do is kind of do some cost sharing. And I'm not trying to sponge money off it, but I know that departments would like access to 3,000 high school kids that are excited about the kind of cool stuff that we have going on here.
Any more questions? Sean, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so just to clarify, when you talked about community and who this would affect, this would be a service provided to, is there an age range that matters in terms of who you would provide this resources to, the service to, and discussing entrepreneurship? Or is it just for CW or high school students?
For the internal advisory part, it's just CWU students, mostly because there's so many that can use help that's focused on that. I would have the student point the adults to me, the community members, and then I would funnel them off to Ellensburg Development Association, which is the appropriate thing for them to do. It's not as good as what we would do. Oh, and for the MFE, that is focused on high school kids, and the student volunteers are CWU volunteers that we train to kind of product development. And the MFE, the adults, are either chaperones or they are the super judge volunteers. And we've had great people with that.
Any more questions? All right, seeing none.
I'll just add that I go to many faces of entrepreneurship, and it's like the highest energy, like super cool place you could go to. And all the CWU volunteers are like ecstatic when they come back, and they don't stop talking about it. So that's a side note. But
nice.
It was designed to be what's that big thing that you had Malala at a few years back with all the Washington State like FBLA officers. The head of the superintendent of all the schools in Washington State worked with us to kind of design this program and kind of refined it from there. I forgot what it was called, but anyway, like a rock concert, that's what it's supposed to be.
All right, so if you guys think of any other questions, just email Joey or Lacey. Thank you for coming out, sir. Very nice presentation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And on to the final presentation of the day. It's from the College of Business Clubs and Events, and that is with Olivia Vester.
hi, everyone. So I'm also joined with our Associate Dean, Coco Wu, as well. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Olivia Vester, and I am the Recruiting and Events Coordinator for the College of Business. And I'm also sharing my screen, so my desktop is a mess if you cannot see that already. So we're here today to discuss Hopin, which is a virtual platform. And we have not previously requested S&A funds for this, but that's also because COVID did not exist before. So we didn't really have a need for a solely virtual event platform. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Hopin and what it has. This whole thing is going to be directed towards Hopin. And while I work for the College of Business, we have had many other departments across campus express an interest in this platform. So Career Services definitely wants to use it for career fairs. We've had the orientation team reach out. They want to use it for Wildcat Days, probably some onboarding later on. We have also talked to Student Engagement has a interest in it as well. And then to preface it as well, we're doing kind of a trial right now with Hopin. So we actually have been able to use the platform. It's an amazing platform. It's super intuitive. It's easy to manage. We did a virtual club fair on it, and 4 out of 5 students say they highly prefer it to Zoom, and then everyone else moderately prefers it to Zoom. So it's kind of like for large scale events, I would say. So I'll talk a little bit about the interactive area. So there are 4 main tabs or interactive areas that you can use on Hopin. So there is the stage, which you can also have thousands of people on Hopin at a time with absolutely like no lag. So it's great, it's amazing. So the stage is going to be more so for like a keynote speaker. It's kind of one person talking to many. So like I said, keynote is really good. You can have moderators, so you can bring people on if they have questions. There's also a backstage. So if you have a bunch of presenters lined up in a row, kind of for a schedule, they can hang out there, they can ask questions, they can see how everything works. And then the sessions tab is the more interactive thing. So that is kind of like a Zoom room. Like this, so you can have multiple people. There is unlimited sessions concurrent sessions that you can have at a time. So this would be really cool. I think of like, like having like a financial aid thing. There's a housing session. There's a thing like for us personally, we'll be using it for conferences. So this is where we'll have program specific things. And also we'll also be holding like a graduation reception on here. So each family can kind of have a session so people are able to congratulate our faculty, and staff will be interacting with them. So it's a awesome thing as well. And then the networking tab is kind of like speed dating, but in a professional manner. So you kind of go like for 90 seconds with someone, and you can set the time to whatever you want, but I usually go for kind of like 90 seconds, you can fall off, 180 seconds. So you're randomly paired with people. You can do ticket matching. So for our purposes, we definitely are going to have a lot of student and then alumni. So we're pairing professionals so students are able to get that networking experience, to talk to professionals, to work through that whole thing. And you can also make connections with that. So, and everyone can pull those reports afterwards, at least with the bigger plan. As I mentioned, we're on a trial, so we have very limited capabilities where we are right now. So kind of just testing out the platform as a whole. And then the expo has a lot of possibilities when it comes to Central. So the expo is kind of like, if you imagine any kind of career fair, you know how everyone has their own table, their own little booth, you like walk around. It's the same exact thing here. So in the virtual world, it's fantastic. You get to meet with professionals, you get to meet with different companies, you can set them up to be like graduate programs. It could be used for the majors fair, you know, that kind of thing. So people are able to stop in, and these can either be live, or you can just have videos that have already been pre-recorded. You can have Google Slides set up. There's really a lot of possibilities, and I'm just going to keep going, and I can come back to these things later as well if we have more time. Just want to make sure we're getting through. So that's kind of how the platform is set up. And then most importantly, what kind of events can be held on Hopin. So I put our College of Business mission because all of these kind of fall up under there. But professional conferences, you can do career and club fairs, industry workshops, onboarding and recruiting, celebrations and recognition. So I can speak from the College of Business side. Like I said, there's many departments across campus that are very interested in this, but we'll be using it for our launch conference. We'll be using it for our Women in Business conference. We will be using it for our Economic Outlook conference. We did hold and I'll move on to the next one. So we did hold a virtual club fair. Like I said, it went super well. It was the first ever virtual club fair at CWU. We had, the students were super excited about it. They love seeing their booth. They're like, this is awesome. Like, we should do this more often. And also it's great because it makes it accessible to our West Side students, and usually they don't have opportunities like this. So I love how accessible it is to our West Side students, College of Business especially. You know, we have 3 centers and also our online students who again just don't get these opportunities regularly. So industry workshops. So we are super in the College of Business, super into connecting industry professionals and our students together. So we'll be holding like COALT workshops. We'll be doing SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management workshops. And our clubs are doing a lot of these things as well. So I also work with our clubs. That's part of my job. So we'll be doing those things. And then again, onboarding and recruiting. Orientation team has expressed interest in it, so it could potentially be used for summer orientations, things like that. Like, really the possibilities are endless. I mentioned how we're going to be doing our graduation celebration. We're going to be doing our outstanding student events on this. And with our trial, we are limited to 1,000 people total. So we're going to hit that cap pretty quickly, like just with College of Business. So I have been getting, like I said, a lot of additional interest from other people, and unfortunately I just can't. I also only have room for 1 user, and it's not necessarily in my job description to, you know, prepare for Wildcat Days and do all of those things. So I'm mainly asking for Central as a whole to be able to have access to this amazing platform. So benefits for students. Here's my beautiful like snapshot of things. So there is a lot of benefits for students. Definitely building their professional development, building different skills with workshops. The networking is phenomenal. And I'm also going to tie that to how they can link social media. So this is mainly LinkedIn. We're thinking professional social media. We're not thinking, you know, their Instagram account where they're like, yeah, go check me out. So they're able to connect with the potential employers, definitely alumni, and also just other students. Like, you can take things for different affinity groups that we have around campus, where they can just kind of do a meet and greet. It's, again, I mentioned that it's accessible to students across all campus. I work very closely with our clubs, and our clubs are very excited to do this. The Women in Business is one of our clubs, and they will be holding the Find Your Voice conference coming up. So we're super excited for that. Lots of opportunities with clubs. Hopefully I'm not missing chat. Okay. So also visibility to industry partners. It's easy to navigate. And again, the Zoom fatigue is real. So students definitely mentioned that when they were doing the club fair. They're like, this was such a nice change of pace for having to be in a virtual environment. Okay, and then for internal benefits, there is definitely a lot of, you can sell tickets on here. So it has a built-in payment system, which is really great because we do a lot of things like the accounting barbecue we will also be holding on Hopin. I guess it's not a barbecue anymore, but they do fundraising for the accounting and finance / Beta Alpha Psi Club. So they're able to kind of use that for selling tickets. And also when we have, like I said, really large events, we are often charging alumni for things. So then you also have access to a lot of analytics, recordings. The analytics are insane. I could know almost every single thing that a person did throughout the entire event. And again, pulling that connection things is very important for us to see how many students actually connected to professionals in their field. And that's something we haven't really had access to track before. And then the team management collaboration as well. Obviously, that's important to us to be able to collaborate with other people. And then I'm going to put the pricing here. So you can kind of take a little moment. I know I'm also going to send it out after this to see the different things that are offered. So the enterprise bundle, we have the business bundle, and then there's like additional add-ons. So definitely, depending on how many departments are interested, because I interact with very few departments around campus who immediately showed an interest and are like, yes, this is what we absolutely need. So that kind of just depends on the number of organizers we want. You are able to do unlimited events with whatever thing you are. It's just kind of limited by registrations. You can pay for additional registrations. And definitely the CWU branding is super important as well. So that's my presentation. I also, sorry, Coco. Coco was going to take over the pricing slide. I was on a roll.
Olivia knows a whole lot more about Hopin than I do. I'm just the person that's sitting there going, okay, how do we make money out of this investment? But it seems that we possibly can for the student clubs. But what got us excited with Hopin was really the students. And as Olivia had pointed out, College of Business is 45% transfer population among our undergrad students. And most of these transfer students are really on the west side or they live in Yakima. A lot of them are also part of our growing online population. So you're looking at about 45% of students who actually did not have this level of access to our engagement opportunities pre-COVID. So to these students, the COVID time that we had, one, it forced us to learn new ways to engage students. Second, it actually, when we actually offer these new methods for engagement, we do watch our students engaging with us. And it's very encouraging to see that it's not just the business students, it's all over the campus. Students want to have a better platform. So the whole reason Olivia spent so much time figuring out the kinks with Hopin with the trial period is to figure out, well, is it worth it? And the answer is yes. Hopin has so many more advantages that Zoom simply can't really compensate for. For one thing, Hopin won't put any audience member on the spot. So you can really participate as quietly as you want. On the other hand, you can also participate as visibly as you want. So Hopin can make you the presenter anytime you want. So it's a whole different level of, if you're just looking at room by room. But Zoom is kind of a pain when you have to do multiple breakout sessions, or if you have a large scale event that has concurrent activities going on. Hopin makes that very easy to handle and user friendly. But we are looking at tracking information as well. Right now, our student success partners, even in admission and enrollment management partners, when we help students from admission to graduation, this whole process, all of our partners on campus, we're doing so much, and our students are busy with us too, but nothing has been tracked. There's no one students on campus that can showcase, these are all of the co-curricular or extracurricular stuff we've done. So how does this tie into what the College of Business is trying to do? We are creating a co-curricular program that would help students track their co-curricular activities, and Hopin provides a piece of that data that we need, that is how engaged a student is in these activities. So basically, from a user and a admin standpoint, Hopin offers us the tools that we need. And as we look into post-COVID strategic planning, as a college, I think it would be remiss or even short-sighted to think that a post-COVID world would operate 100% the way it did pre-COVID. I think over the past 12 months, what we figured out is we can learn to engage students virtually. And our students also learn to become more comfortable. And some students even find online environment more friendly or even safer for them to participate in. So we are hoping that with this new methods, we can take our engagement events to a broader audience, to a different level coming back in fall 21. That's my piece.
All right, any questions? I see Eunice had his hand up, and then we'll go to Lacey.
So I have some couple questions. So how many clubs under the business? Like clubs you guys talking about?
Right, yeah, it's like, so we have 14 clubs and we've actually just been adding and adding clubs. So we have 3 new clubs that actually started this year, probably because of the additional support that I am able to offer. It really helps students out in that way.
Also, okay, my other questions, how many people showing the club's events?
How many people come to in each club?
Yeah,
so our largest club has 63 people who attend very regularly, and then our smaller clubs have about 9 people who attend. So our average for all of the clubs is probably about 22 students per club.
Okay, the reason I am asking, I am also president of one of the club at Central Washington University. Our university has a Zoom license, which is you can have more than 100 people, and it's free. I don't know why you guys don't use that. Also, I'm just curious about that. The clubs have their own funding from the club council. Also, if any club wants to have more funding, they can be the organizations at Central Washington University, and you can get more funding. I'm just curious, why S&A? Why you guys coming to S&A for the club funding, not going to club like a funding or became organizations?
Right, so most of this isn't going to go to clubs. It is a service that we do offer to our clubs, but for the most, all in all, this affects all of the students at Central. For the events that I am planning personally, it's mostly going to affect the College of Business as a whole student, because again, we offer a lot of that connection to industry, holding those workshops, that kind of thing. And also clubs are able to request up to $2,000 per thing, and as like, we just don't want to take money from clubs that they can use for their own particular purposes.
And if I may provide.
I think your mic is off.
Oh, sorry. I have too many mute buttons. So compared to Zoom, Zoom will not allow you to charge for a ticket, for example. Let's say political science wants to have a guest speaker event and you want to invite alums, you want to invite more audience. Basically, Hopin is more inviting by it can help you bring industry and alums to your students, to your clubs, rather than taking your students out to them. And at the same time, it actually gives you a fundraising function by selling your own tickets. So that's something that Zoom can't do. Zoom is also very clumsy in how it operates. Zoom's concurrent session has to be manually operated and created on the spot. Hopin allows you to plan for an event weeks ahead of time. The moment you know how the event is going to lay out, let's say we want to do a poli-sci conference, and then you have multiple sessions. The moment you figure out your guest speakers, the moment you figure out your conference agenda, the whole conference can already be done. Like the planning part of the job can already be done. Then you just market the event and bring people in. So now it's not just the club thing. The club thing is really just to service our student clubs and to engage them, to encourage them to go out there, to practice, the skills that they learn in their academic programs. But more importantly, these are also designed for internal student engagement events, such as, for example, what if we want to do a career fair? In winter, for example, winter career fairs has really record low turnouts. Why? The weather prevents employers to come to us. Hopin doesn't have a weather condition. So I think Hopin is something that a lot of competing institutions will be using. We had a hard time with last year's graduation events as well. Hopin, on the other hand, actually could make it a very smooth and sleek process for all of the attendants. So Hopin actually will allow you to create even different tiers of ticket. For example, you can create free tickets for your poli-sci club members, right, for your own events. But if it's also a fundraising event for the clubs, you can charge $50 a ticket for any external audience. So it just offers so many more options than Zoom. Also, Zoom is very clunky when it comes to attendance tracking, especially if you're trying to figure out, for example, poli-sci wants to study the kind of program interest that your new students may be interested in. Hopin will allow you to track, well, see you have 20 students coming to your session, which topic or which specialization these students all hop into. So literally can track their movement in the virtual space. Zoom doesn't spit out the back-end data readily. So Zoom requires you to actually manually crank down every single participant, which is a time-consuming process. And as for why don't we get the clubs to do their own thing? Well, that means $18,000 per club. And that is something that probably Central doesn't want to do. I think the most economic way that Central can do this is to have an institutional account. The College of Business is the one that's proposing this funding proposal because we already have events going on. We will definitely be happy to share this account if we get sufficient funding. But the way that we could fund it is definitely not going to be able to have the capacity for all of these campus partners and student clubs to take part in this. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to the question.
All right, let's go Brandon and then Greg.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess Lacey first, which budget does our Zoom license come out of?
So that gets a bit complicated because all of enterprise software is actually university-wide. So it's actually usually coming out of the operational budget, which is under, for most sense of purposes, it's under the information services. So think of that large department. So the budget specifically could be from multiple sources. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, okay. Well, since that's probably more complicated, I guess my question then, My question is like, why not possibly pursue like the Tech Fee Council? I feel like this aligns very closely to like the Tech Fee Council's mission, and this is a campus-wide software, and as well, it's, I guess, you know, very on like the technical aspect versus S&A where we're thinking about service and activities.
So I can probably offer a possible answer to that. So the funding we're requesting from S&A is because these are not instructional activities. So this is not the kind of things that tech fees particularly consider, because it's not going to support a lab or a common software. And in fact, we were suggested to come to this committee because the people across campus believe that this is the better venue to go. As for institutional account, we would love to have that if Central is ready. However, across campus, the partners that we are currently working with, the partners who want to utilize this platform at the time of proposal submission, they were not quite aware of the functionality and capability of this software. So, well, this platform. So the bottom line is we are happy to work with campus partner to serve all Central students. But the problem is with our budget, we can't offer that capacity. And that's why we're asking for funding support for the long run for this particular platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to clarify, was it Lacey or Greg who had their hand up first?
That was probably Lacey.
Lacey, all right, let's go with Lacey then.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that it provides an opportunity to sell registration or tickets. So my question about that is, we currently have a department that's a centralized ticketing agency for the entire campus. So part of that question is, how is that not a duplicate of service? And then the next question that I would have that's kind of coupled with that is, if it's a part of the process right now, who's paying for all the fees that are associated with the financial pieces? And has that been approved by the appropriate committees?
Currently, the College of Business is covering all of the costs associated with Hopin, regardless of who we are supporting. So we are paying for it during the trial run on Hopin. But this trial run will end, and we cannot support this indefinitely. So that's why we did not have to seek higher level investment decisions. And as for the Central Ticketing Center, I don't know if all of you have experience working with the ticketing center. It's a centralized function, which means your users will have to jump through a couple of hoops to actually get charged to come and attend an event. The ticketing actually doesn't, with Hopin, you get to create all sorts of tickets, not just for your participants, but also for your expo vendors. For example, career fair. If every company we want to charge them a fee, Central Ticketing actually does that. But the funding goes to, I don't know what kind of places. I would look, if Poli-Sci Club is having a Poli-Sci career fair, and they want these vendors to pay the club a fee to be a recruiter on this event, I would like to see that funding going to Poli-Sci Club rather than someplace else. And so the charging mechanism is very straightforward with Hopin for both vendors and participants. It is a whole lot less straightforward with Central Ticketing, and being part of a state agency, I think Central Ticketing is also subject to some other regulations. So
to clarify, Central or Wildcat Tickets is going to be operating under the CWU regulations that would be applied to anything collecting money. So the reason why I ask is because it's really complicated, and my department actually helps services the accounting and finances with Wildcat Tickets. And so I was really curious on if this is going to be housed specifically in the College of Business, who will be that central person to help facilitate all of the processing fees and to ensure that this PCI compliance is met?
No, just before you answer that question, I would just like to say we are at time for questions, I believe, unless we motion to make more time for this.
We could also make a motion. We can ask any other questions, but if a committee member wanted to allow motion to answer the question, or we can reset it electronically. It's up to you all.
I can send it electronically.
Okay.
I was going to make, you know, I don't know how much time anybody wants, but I was going to make an motion to continue it just so we can get it over.
Do I
We'll
see
count
a
that as a
second?
motion, Terry.
I second it.
And so to clarify, as we pulled the poll, the motion is to essentially allow the presenters to answer the question that Lacey just asked.
So motion
Lacey,
passes.
So should I answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Lacey, to answer your question, I don't know because I don't handle the finance side of how money gets charged. So the thing is, these are things that we can figure out. I don't think the money needs to come to College of Business. I think central ticketing, if they can build in the pathway for Wildcat tickets to get the funding after the platform charges the users, that's totally fine with us. But it would be technically a smoother experience for the users if, you know, they pay and participate at the event at one stop rather than, you know, jumping between different interfaces between, you know, Wildcat ticket, my CWU, and then Hopin. But we frankly trust that if, you know, the money needs to go to Wildcat ticket, then it goes to Wildcat ticket. It will, we trust the central system that it will distribute the money to wherever it needs to go. We just want to make sure that the user experience is seamless, because that's critical to engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also just like add that we don't charge for most of our events. So the only one in particular I can think of would be for the accounting and finance club. So I would personally reach out to club accounting to help figure that out since it is one of our central clubs. So
yeah, the
Lacey,
whole
I would
charging
hit you
function
up too.
is really for events that wants to do that. But for our students, the whole point of asking for funding support is so that we don't charge students to come to these events. So if there are targets that some events really want to charge fees for, really, right now only one thing pops in mind would be those career fairs that charge employers.
All right, thank you. And if you guys have any other questions, just email Joey or Lacey, and then they'll get an answer to us. Thank you for coming out. That was a good presentation. Thanks. We appreciate your time.
Thank you
guys so much.
All right. And I would just like to say, I'm sorry about the last presentation. I thought they ended later than they were supposed to. So I mistook the time on that. It went a little over time. That was my mistake. Anyway, on to old business. Is there any old business today? No old business. All right. Any communications received?
Yes, and I will read as quickly as I can because I know we're at the 8 o'clock time. So we have it recorded. You'll all get this sent to you as well. Before I do want to say, again, thank you, Christian. You're doing a great job. There's a lot with the timing and keeping track of all that and trying to take in the information as well. So no need to apologize at all. So as quickly as I can, going down from the presentations, the requests we put out, the first one was for the music department. We had a couple questions that were submitted to Todd Shiver, responded back. Question number one, what would be the impact if there was a 15% reduction in S&A funding? Their response, since our funds are used for student travel, we'd be forced to turn down opportunities to perform and to represent the department and university outside of Ellensburg. Question number two, during a normal year, how fast is the $63,000 allocated out? Response, it'd be difficult to define a normal year. Our performance opportunities are many, some years and few other years, as he shared. We felt that the $70,000 request would be an average for those years. And then said, here are a couple of examples. Last year, the Mariachi Club requested supplemental funding for new uniforms and travel to perform at an international festival in Guadalajara, Mexico. The department funds go toward travel, so the Mariachi group went to S&A to request funding for uniforms. Their invitation to perform at the festival came in later in the academic year. The department had already allocated all of its S&A funds to groups who received invitations earlier, with a considerable amount going to a group traveling to perform at an international conference in Japan. We also had the orchestra trip to perform at the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic in Chicago. So we're trying to encumber funds to help get our 80 students in the orchestra to Chicago. Of course, none of this happened because of the pandemic. Our large groups often receive priority funding because they allow for more students to have this performance experience, and the smaller groups have to come to S&A for supplemental funding. Was going over your 63,000 allocation a good stewardship of the funds? And then in parentheses, every year a music group has come in for supplemental S&A funding. The response, we feel that we've been good stewards of S&A funds. As I said in my presentation, some years we get a few invitations and don't use our entire allotment, and some years we go over and have to request supplemental funding. We feel that the $70,000 per year will meet most of our performance travel needs over the next quadrennial. It's difficult to anticipate when we will receive a big invitation like the Midwest Clinic invitation in Chicago. Our CW Orchestra will be the first collegiate orchestra to perform at this conference in its 75 years of existence. The clinic attracts over 18,000 attendees from all 50 states and from 40 countries. We sent an application, we've applied many times over the years, and we finally received this prestigious invitation. We don't count on this kind of invitation during our anticipated quadrennial request. When these opportunities arise for our students, we don't want to have to turn them down. And then please let me know if there's any additional questions. So that was one. The next one was the funding request to the Sarah Spurgeon Art Gallery. Similar questions, I'll jump in here. Heather responded, what would be the impact if there was a 15% reduction in your current S&A funding? Heather's response, we would need to reduce our programs accordingly by canceling an exhibit or some events. Next question, there's a large equipment expense forecasted for fiscal year 21. Can you explain this expense more? Response, all the gallery spring 2020 in-person programs and one fall 2020 exhibit were canceled due to COVID-19. We plan to spend the resulting cost savings on equipment that improves the safety of students and staff in the gallery. New ladders to replace old wooden ladders and a large student attendant desk that provides them with more distance from gallery patrons. In addition, there's currently no computer workstation for student employees in the gallery, so we plan to purchase a desktop computer and printer for them to use in the space. And then final question, you're requesting over double the last quadrennium. Have you been able to function at less than 50% the last 4 years? In response, in the past, we have not been able to invite the high caliber of national and international artists that we would like to feature for budget reasons. Art shipping can be very costly, in addition to providing an honorarium for artists who travel to Ellensburg and give lectures and workshops. We'd like the students of CWU and the broader community to experience exhibits and programs that they would not normally have access to, given our rural setting. It's an important part of our mission as a university art gallery. In addition, we would like to hire additional student help for the gallery. Our request also includes staffing and exhibit costs for a new summer exhibition. The gallery is currently closed during the summer. Next, as I'm making my way through. This was in response to the, and I don't have the name, but this is the art series, art lecture series that Marcus responded to. Again, same first question, what would be the impact if there was a 15% reduction in your S&A requested amount? The response is a 15% reduction would condense the number of lectures we could bring to CWU. We'd probably have one less lecture a year if these funds were reduced by that amount. Next question, are these lecture events purely educational about art and design? If so, is this only a benefit to and directed to students studying art? Response, no, these lectures are meant for a general audience and topics range greatly. And then goes into a number of different artists lectured about their work in relation to history of forced assimilation of First Nation and Native Americans in the US and Canada. Lecture was about graphic design was used in propaganda posters during the Russian Revolution. He very clearly unpacked the history of Russia throughout the 20th century throughout his lecture. Another one, All Power Visual Legacies of the Black Panther Party exhibition, spent much of her lecture laying out the history of the Black Panthers and how their strategies and activism and community building have permeated through the decades to the Black Lives Matter movements of today. We're also working on additional programming for that event, where we're going to bring former leaders of the Seattle chapter of the Black Panther Party to campus. Couldn't make it work with scheduling. And those are just a few examples that clearly illustrate our commitment to truly interdisciplinary lectures. Students don't need to know anything about visual arts to get something out of our lecture series. We want these events to be appealing to as broad an audience as possible. Next question, how many non-art students attend each event? Response, 1 out of 3 attendees on average are non-art students. We also have respectively exchanges with Kittitas and Yakima counties. We've had great community engagement for certain events. We had a large turnout for trans artists and activists, with members of the LGBTQ+ community coming from as far away as Pullman. We had quite a few members of the Yakima Nation attend another lecture series. One of our primary goals is to grow these numbers as we forge new relationships with departments and organizations on and off campus. And then final question, will there be an employed student with this program? Will it be an art student? Response, our student employees are not necessarily art students, and it is not a qualification for the jobs we offer. I believe this was stated by Greg during the meeting. All of our jobs in the department are posted on the CWU website through HR, and we've had many non-art students work for us. We're getting close, 2 more. The next one is for the Randall Hall student monitors. First question, what would be the impact if there was a 15% reduction in your S&A requested amount? Response from our own Greg Schlanger. We would need to reduce the hours accordingly. Next question, how will these students be trained and compensated for that work? Response, the student employees will be trained by Greg, by Marcus, and the department secretary, Gwen. The training would include basic building protocols for safety and security, including the department's general guidelines for emergency preparedness, identification of emergency exits, location of Randall's staging area, and emergency procedures as coordinated with CWU's Department of Environmental Health and Safety. We've developed management safety plan for the building and all art studios. These are posted within each studio. The student employees would be trained or would be introduced to the safety plans. Students would be paid their standard hourly rate during all trainings. And then the final one was really a joint response that we had of questions for the marching and pep band. If it will pull up here. And so this came in and they kind of answered them together, just so you know as I ask them. So what would be the impact if there was a 15% reduction in S&A funding? Marching band, a 15% reduction of the marching band request would total about just under $11,000. Using minimum, moderate, and severe as rankings, this reduction would be classified in the moderate category. Although the remaining $62,000 would still allow us to provide a positive experience for our participants, we would have to make cuts in each line item category to successfully meet the projected needs of the marching band. The most significant impacts would be on student positions, non-student positions, both of which have high impacts on operation and presentation. The basketball band, a 15% reduction on the marching band request would be just over $3,000 using minimum, moderate, and severe as ranking. This reduction would be classified in the severe category. As mentioned in our proposal, over 90% of the allotment for the basketball band is spent on student employment, student performers. A 15% reduction, therefore, would change the makeup of the personnel, what the ensemble looks like, and likely reduce the performance quality. This reduction would be a decrease of 8 ensemble members. Next question, can you provide a description of the curriculum academic expectations that students have in the marching band course? What parts are specifically tied to the course versus outside the academic expectations? The marching band as a class is designed to teach participants, emphasis towards those students studying music education, how to teach marching band in secondary schools. Students are expected to be able to describe and demonstrate core style marching, solve marching coordinates used in the setting of drill, memorize music and routines leading to performance, while also demonstrating quality musicianship coupled with visual responsibilities. These outcomes are designed to be met during class instruction, total of 6 hours over the course of the fall quarter. The service that is provided by members of the marching band in association with the university and athletics exceed the academic responsibilities of the course significantly, mainly in the form of time commitment and performance obligations. We engage in such activity because we firmly believe in supporting the mission of both the university and CWU athletics to promote school spirit and pride by creating shared experiences that unite the Wildcat community and to support students in the production of creative expression, respectively. Next question, are the non-student funded positions providing instruction for the marching band, or what are those roles in relation to the academic course? The response, yes. We have proposed 5 positions in the non-student position category. 4 of them provide direct instruction to the marching band, color guard instructor, and 3 percussion instructors. The percussion instructors assist in the development of performance technique, while the color guard instructor also assists with performance technique in addition to creating the choreography. The remaining non-student position is that of the drill designer. Although this position does not directly teach the marching band, this position provides the drill formation that the students execute during performance. Marching band is a musical and visual collaboration. Without the drill designer, 1/2 of the performance element would be missing. Next question, the band is not associated with academic credit, but has an SCOI evaluation process for student members. This was about the pep band, basketball band. The response is there are no SCOIs associated with the basketball band. And then finally, pep band still plans to spend almost all of their fiscal year 21 allocation, despite their season being shut down and only a possible shortened season in the spring. The pep band, in response, pep band is planning on returning their entire allocation for fiscal year 21, as well as what was left over from last season, for a total of just over $24,000 returning. And that is all of the communications we have received.
All right. Any public comment? Seeing none, can I entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting? I'm going to take that face as I thought I saw Greg's hand. Sorry.
So moved.
All right. Seconded by Greg. Motion passed. All right. Have a nice night, everybody.
Thank you all. Appreciate the hard work. See you next week.
Thank you. Good night.